All right, y'all. Happy Friday. So this question came up during a coaching session with one of my clients yesterday, and I think that a lot of you probably had the same question. So I wanted to flesh that out and share what I had shared with him last night. And the question was, how do you go about dissolving your fear? Or when fear comes up, how do you go about dealing with it, right? The first thing that I want everybody to recognize is that you do not act after you get over your fear. You act in spite of your fear, right? Overcoming fear, getting through your fear happens when you do the thing you're afraid of, right? You have to act in spite of your fear. That's how we step out of our comfort zone, learn what we're capable of, and expand that comfort zone. And remember, your comfort zone is usually also your income zone, and it's usually also your happiness zone. So if you want to increase your happiness and your income, you gotta expand that comfort zone, right? So that's the first thing, is recognizing that you're not going to act. You don't wait until, oh, I'm done with the fear, no longer afraid, now I can take action. No, the only thing that will get rid of that fear is taking action and acting in spite of your fear, right? So that's the first thing. But what I told him was that I asked myself 3 questions that really help in dissolving any fear that come up. So anytime a fear comes up, the first question I ask myself is, how likely is this really? Usually the things that we are afraid of are the minority. It's the thing that has a lower probability of happening, right? But we're afraid of that. But when we actually take the time to ask that question and say, okay, is this a 10% probability, 1% probability? Am I spending all of my time focusing on the 1% instead of the 99%? Right? And just that alone, when you recognize, okay, there's a very low probability of this happening, it can help to dissolve that fear, right? The second question that I ask is, if this did happen, how bad would it be really, right? How bad would it be? And that's when you actually put yourself in that scenario, right? Usually I'm always talking about, in a previous video, I talked about releasing anxiety. It can help to, put yourself in the mental and emotional state you would be in when you succeeded, right? But even before that, if you're feeling those fears, you can also put yourself in the negative part, right? Imagine the worst case scenario and then imagine yourself working through it. The issue is that a lot of us don't answer the question. We keep asking ourselves, what if? What if? What if? Oh yeah, what if? Answer the what if question. What if this happened? What if the worst case scenario happened? What would it look like? How bad would it be really? Am I making it too big of a deal in my mind? And then if and when it does happen, what's in my control? And exactly the steps am I going to take to get out of that situation, right? To push through it. So now, if the worst case scenario happens, I've already prepared for it mentally. So now I can go into it with no fear of the worst case, because I'm ready for it. I got a plan for the worst case. So there's no need to sit back saying, what if, what if? I've answered the what if question, right? I know what if. So I don't need to ask what if anymore. I know, right? So that one is really important. Just answer the what if question, put yourself in the worst case, and imagine yourself working through that worst case. You got a plan for it, right? If those 2 questions, usually those dissolve it, right? But if those 2 questions don't work to dissolve it, move on to the third question. How temporary is this really? How temporary will this be, right? If it did happen, how temporary would it be? Everything's temporary, and this is a very pointed question. You have to use those words, because if you use words like, how long would it be? How long would I have to deal with this? Then your unconscious mind can come up with some long, right? Some really long time frames. But if you ask yourself that question, how temporary would this be? And you remind yourself consciously that everything is temporary and that I will, this too shall pass, right? And you ask that question, okay, is this going to last a day? Am I going to be, in that bad situation for hours, days? Like, how temporary is it really? And when you really take the time to flesh these 3 questions out, step back, step behind your mind, ask yourself these questions and answer them, right? Because so many of us are asking ourselves questions without answering our own questions. and that can cause some anxieties and fears and issues. So I hope this was beneficial. I always feel the need to give credit where credit was due. My coach Sean Smith taught me these questions. So I'm always, recommending that people check out his YouTube, because I learned so much from him, and obviously invested in his coaching packages. But these 3 questions, and quick recap. What's the probability of this? How likely is this to happen? How bad would it really be? And how temporary is it? Those 3 questions really, really help with dissolving any fear that comes up. And if that don't work, and you need someone to ask even more questions, to dive deeper into, do it some deeper than surface level work to figure out how we can really push through and work through these fears, you already know what I'm about to say. Hit me up. I would love to be a resource. I would love to see how we can touch those fears and do the deeper than surface level work, so that you're not just trying to, motivate yourself. You're not just trying to push yourself and say, no, I'm not supposed to feel the fear, right? We can work through it and make sure that you actually get the fear out of your body, your physiology, right? Because a lot of these things are lodged in our body. So we need to do that deeper than surface level work to not just have an intellectual knowing of these things, but a unconscious embodiment of these new paradigms. So hope this added value. Hope you got some benefit and learned something. Hope you take some action with this. I love you, and I'm excited for the next message.